Before I even tell you who I am and who our panel is, let me just tell you a little something about the scariest movie ever made. And I don't know what you guys think the scariest movie ever made is, but this changed audiences' perception of media and entertainment. And it's an old movie. It's from 1895. It's the original horror film, and it's called The Arrival of a Train by the Lumiere brothers. You've probably all heard about it. Now, it was horrific at the time because audiences were actually watching a train coming towards them on the tracks. And according to what was written about in newspapers in Paris in 1895, that summer, people fled the theater when they saw the train coming. They just weren't used to that experience. It was a game-changing experience that way. So they rushed for the exit, and they didn't want to get run over by the train. That's how real the experience was. And that's, to me, the essence of a good story. Stories started around communal campfires with shadow monsters and legends that soared above the flickering flames. And there's still something about the spoken story that appeals to us in our culture. We're wired for social interaction in our brains. It's part of our basic neurochemistry. Studies have shown that social interaction can slow down the onset of Alzheimer's disease because of the way that social interaction activates different parts of our brain. So we delight in this, and our brains love it when we talk to people, when we experience people, when we engage with people. So even the most shy person you know has a secret delight in talking to someone new, and we all do. We just basically thrive on conversation and stories. We have a generations-long history of engaging with stories as well, and that's why the Lumiere brothers' film from 1895 scared the audiences so much and delighted them. Now, there's a great book called The Storytelling Animal by Jonathan Gottschall. And the premise of the book basically is stories frame the way that we see the world. Fiction, in particular, frames the way that we'll look out for animals that are near us or organize people around a hunt in the ancient savannah. And so everyone likes a good story and a good storyteller. So where are stories going right now? Better technology has emerged over the last 100 years since Lumiere brothers. And this technology enables us to create fun and deep experiences out of our own lives. We're entering a new phase of our collective storytelling experience. We're immersing ourselves into virtual reality and augmented reality. Myself, I came to VR and AR through Amazon. I was one of the early inventors behind the Amazon Kindle, which revolutionized, and I mean really revolutionized, not that kind of fake revolutionized that people sometimes talk about. But it revolutionized the way that people read stories, and it revolutionized reading itself. People are spending more time with content, with books, and that's great. But I think the stories are moving away from books and into experiences which engage more of our senses. And so what I'm up to now is I'm founding member of a company called Be Forever Me, which is all about using future-forward technology to enable our personal stories, memories, and ideas to live on and to be accessible forever through the cloud. So check it out on beforever.me. That's my shameless plug right now. But what I'm pleased to do now is to introduce you to our panel members. I'm actually extremely happy to be part of a group of innovators here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of our takes on virtual and augmented realities. So let me introduce you, if I can, first to Mark, who has the distinction of going first because his laptop is here and he's got a great presentation for us. He founded Lightshot to develop an interactive technology platform that would digitally connect physical gaming by leveraging the cloud. So a player's smartphone is connected to augmented reality heads-up displays on next-generation smart glasses. The company was founded on the belief that mobile devices should provide a truly mobile gaming experience by removing the tether to TVs and screens. Lightshot's sensor-based transmedia gaming platform incorporates sensor-based hardware and peripherals, along with users' mobile devices, to provide the link between the player, the real world, and augmented reality to create an immersive gaming experience. Mark.
Thank you, Jason. And as I pull this up, I think the only two AR people that I've seen so far on a panel yet might both be on the same panel here today, which got me to wondering,
like Highlander.
Confirming why it was called, sorry, oh, let me go full view here. There we go. It's called Virtual Hollywood and not Augmented Hollywood, but then again, that would probably be politically incorrect. Okay, so To give you a, you kind of got my background here. I'm gonna talk a little bit about AR and gaming, and kind of melding together some of these sessions that you heard about in terms of storytelling as it relates to interfusing AR and kind of what it means as we take that storytelling and take it outside. So one of the things that's really happened is in a very short amount of time, and don't need to tell this to everybody here, we've moved very quickly and progressed on a lot of fronts in terms of technology. And so mobile gaming, we weren't even really talking about 7 years ago. Augmented reality, virtual reality, those are all new terms. And now you have a generation of millennials that are growing up with being connected to the cloud all the time for a constant data stream. And they have the expectation and the promise of AR and VR. And they are growing up with completely connected devices. So what does that mean for us as we plan for the next generation of gaming? And so there's been some studies done as it relates to what that next generation of gaming looks like. And in these studies, this one, for example, was done by a company, agency called Latitude. And what they found is that the younger generation is looking for untethered experiences, but they want to leverage the ability to have things connected through sensors and like, but what they're most craving is very social experiences. So that experience of being in your basement and just kind of being solitary is now becoming, there's a new model that's developed, and it's for both genders. So as you know, gaming has really developed here on the forefront for both men and women. It's not just the 18 to 25-year-old male anymore. And so there is this conversion of a lot of different storytelling that's taking place. You have, I don't know if people are familiar with terms like LARPing, which is live action role playing, where people will go off for an entire weekend and set up camps out in the woods so they can perform and act out these stories that they've created, and everybody has a storyline. You have games like Humans versus Assassins, which is taking place on over 650 college campuses, where people are either a human or a zombie, and they are chasing each other around with Nerf guns. You have a huge resurgence in things like Dungeons and Dragons, and there is, as we get more digital, there's this craving for more of the authentic and the storytelling. And so I say Rise of the Freaks and Geeks lovingly, because there's a book out there called Freaks and Geeks, which is a great storyline about exploring these different things that are converging. And so it brings us to AR. How does all that tie back? Well, we now have a medium that is coming to rise in augmented reality that will now let us begin to engage with those storylines and begin to think of pervasive stories and alternate reality games. And in terms of augmented reality, the numbers are out there, DigiCapital and so on. But in terms of gaming, it's projected to be a $7.2 billion market. And what is it going to take to get AR out there, right? We've spent the last 3 days talking about virtual reality because everybody has the access to, Google Cardboard or Samsung Gear or, Oculus soon enough. But there isn't much ink being spilled over AR. And hopefully next year when we come back, there's going to be a lot more people here that are going to be talking about AR. But this is to give you a sense of where the progress is on the hardware side in terms of smart glasses. And when I talk AR as it relates to what we're doing, it is more focused on smart glasses. And in part because we believe that's really going to give people the ability to engage and be able to take that experience anywhere. And so you can see where the progress of different companies are Epson is actually very close. We're a partner of theirs. And our platform actually works with the various smart glasses. But so now you have the ability, and I come back to this convergence of a lot of different things happening at the right time. You have this, the cloud, which is very ubiquitous, but what it's going to afford us the ability to do is connect all of this information that we're all going to begin streaming right to our headsets and be able to leverage that without being tethered and being able to have our own experiences. So whether you believe it's going to be a contact lens or if you use smart glasses, you're going to be able to start engaging with your environment, and it's going to be a very data-driven rendering process that's going to be needed, and the cloud is a key component to that. In addition, we have a convergence of this proliferation of really inexpensive sensors, which allows us to create unique and innovative type controllers, because as you've probably heard in different sessions, getting VR, AR to really just meld with what you're seeing is going to be dependent on how much you can interact with it from a sensory standpoint. It's not just visually, it's going to require the other senses to feel like you are truly immersed. And what's great is that these sensors have become so inexpensive. And so you begin to look at where this can take you. In the corner, you're seeing, for example, Nintendo released Pokemon, which has a Bluetooth IR band that connects to you. The element that you see there in the middle is one of the prototypes that we're working on. And in that case, that device can be used as an IR grenade that can be rolled in and detonated. It can be, you can attach the copters to it to make it fly. But what's really interesting is now as we have all of these sensors and all of this hardware that's taking place, you can bring that into that type of gaming experience to where you get something like this. And this is kind of where we're going, which is developing that fully immersive experience where we're all standing here. There's a 60-foot dragon, and we're all seeing it from different sides of them, and you and your friends have to take that dragon down. It now is really about sewing together those different components to make a very in-depth narrative, and one that you are, in fact, completely immersed, because that's when the true success is going to happen, when people feel like that blending of the digital and the physical is no longer an issue in terms of whether it's seeing in a VR headset and there's a delay. Once all of those issues are gone, that truly immersive experience is going to unlock so much in terms of the imagination. And so I thought I would just show you quickly a slide here. I'm sorry. So this is a video of a game that we've developed. It's called Assassin. And so this game is on your smartphone. It pairs with your headset. In this case, it's Epson's smart glasses. And what you're going to see here is the HUD for the game. It has a compass on the bottom, which is showing you, using GPS, the direction of your opponent. And it's giving you real-time information, your shield, the timer. When you tilt your head back, it loads the profile of your player. So right now she's stalking him based on knowing where his direction is that's coming up in the HUD. So think Iron Man, think Jarvis. All of that information is now there. Player maps, all can be accessible. And what we've done is we've tied that together with sensors. So what you're seeing there is our lighter that is inserted into hardware, which is a 3D, sorry, it's got a mind of its own. So the devices can be, it plugs into either our peripherals or 3D printed peripherals. and you're able to use it as a gun, a wand, a bow, what have you. It's similar to, we call it a Wii for everywhere. But our platform is generating not only the game content, but third-party developers are developing on our platform, including Epson, who is developing a game on our platform for the release of their next generation hardware. And so we are hopeful here that we will be releasing next year our first gen of the platform. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Thanks. I'd like to, an awesome video too, by the way. I love it. Jason's going to set up his video next, but I'd actually like to invite Mike to speak first. So Mike's a media entrepreneur and activist who actually produced AR content for MSNBC's Lockup franchise. He's bringing 5 years of front office support and creative campaign development from the One Campaign, a grassroots advocacy organization co-founded by Bono, dedicated to ending extreme poverty. He managed 2 of the organization's most successful brands and talent-led campaigns. Mike worked as a coordinator on their 2011 U2 tour and volunteered as a staffer on President Obama's 2012 campaign. He's currently a graduate student of MIT, who I have a soft spot for since I went there too. Mike, bring it up.
Thank you. I'll just speak from here. Hey guys. So my name is Mike Drashkovich. I'm the founder and CEO of Overture. We are a virtual reality content studio. Our mission is to help advance the VR medium through authentic, character-driven storytelling. So that's what I wanted to talk today a bit about, is how we're thinking about storytelling on the new medium, some of the things we've learned, and how we suggest buyers, various properties, network studios think about producing VR. So like I mentioned, we're really focused on the story-driven approach to virtual reality. How we've done that so far, we produced a piece of content around MSNBC's prison documentary series called Lockup. The experience is called Lockup 360, and we go behind bars to show you a day in the life of an inmate, as well as a day in the life of officers on duty there. So really giving viewers that visceral experience of what it's like to live behind bars. We've also produced a piece of content for A&E's Night Watch series that follows first responders in New Orleans as they respond to emergency calls, and we did this in real time. And so when we think about what stories and experiences make sense for the virtual reality medium, we'd like to think about really 3 things. Are there compelling characters that we can follow? Is there an interesting environment, maybe a hard to access environment that people would benefit from visiting for the first time? And lastly, what's the story? That's kind of the most important thing. How can we move VR content beyond just these static yet immersive experiences to really story-based ones? We feel like that is an interesting recipe for creating good content that people want to come back to, watch again, binge-worthy type content. And so as a buyer in the space, I think if you're looking to activate a brand or an IP in virtual reality, we like to suggest it's about thinking about what's the most unique way to leverage the capabilities of virtual reality to kind of accentuate certain aspects of that IP, whether it's a character's backstory, whether it's a particular environment, or whether it's just a really compelling story within that space. But principal to all of that is story. Without story, we feel it's really immersive content. It relies a lot on the novelty of the experience, but over time, we'll feel like that tends to wear off, and what's really going to carry the medium forward is storytelling. Thank you.
I totally agree with that. As a former novelist, publisher, and inventor of ebooks, one of many inventors of ebooks, story is why we're all here. I would venture to say most people in this audience are attached in some very deep way to story, whether you're telling your own or telling your others. The next person's story I'd like to introduce is Jason Yims. It's been special because he's already at the podium. He's having returned recently from TEDx in Hong Kong. Jason is the president and executive creative director of Trigger, an agency with offices in LA, Shanghai, and a new office opening in Denmark. As the showcase developer for Euphoria, Trigger has led the AR campaigns for Nike, McDonald's, and the Amazing Spider-Man movie franchise, the Hunger Games franchise, and the upcoming Star Wars movie. Pretty fantastic. Jason spent the first 3 months of 2015 embedded at LEGO headquarters in Billund, Denmark, to explore the future of digital and physical play. and his latest endeavor is a collaboration with Weta Workshop of Lord of the Rings and Avatar fame to create a patent-pending tabletop AR battle game. So explain AR to us.
Yeah, thanks for that intro. So I'm going to show some AR things that I'm hoping that pushes the understanding of AR a little further. I think AR and VR can actually coexist very well. I think they're both great ingredients that mix together very well. And also in the user testing that we've done, we see a lot of kids having fatigue from one experience versus the other. But once you start mixing it and you can jump from state to state, it's actually more interesting and more engaging for the kid as well, or the user. This is on the most basic level for Star Wars. We're bringing a 3D character to life through a poster. So I think people are familiar with this level of AR when it's off of a 2D printed marker. But where it gets interesting is when we push further than that. So one, this is for Pixels, the Adam Sandler movie. For Sony, this was launched in China and in Australia, and it's actually a second screen experience. So you're in movie theater watching the movie, and you're actually prompted to pull out the app, and you can actually shoot the centipedes on the screen as the movie's going. So this will be part of the DVD and the Blu-ray release as well. But again, it's like it's taking that AR experience and overlaying it in this case with media. So think about like appointment play. You know, there's a cartoon series on the TV. The kid can come out and play something at that moment. But where it gets more compelling, this is for Mockingjay. This came out just today, actually. I think it's going live. But it's 3D tracking on the person's face. So you can put on the makeup to match people as the Capitol or as the rebels. But this idea of 3D tracking, I think, is where the level of magic goes up exponential level. So you're not looking at a poster, you're not looking at a magazine, you're actually looking at a physical object. So a good example of this is Model Box for Lego. So these will come out in Toys R Us in November. But you'll see that the app scans the 3D model, and the whole thing comes to life. So when you're not looking at something print, and you can see like the little minifig who's climbing up the like the beam thing of the boat, like how closely it's registering to the physical toy. And of course, the next level is, you know, right now there's a barrier. You're holding this device between you and the toy, but as soon as you have, you know, digital eyewear, that barrier goes away. The one advantage of the actually having the tablet and the phone is that everyone has a tablet and phone. So therefore, that content can get to everybody. You don't have to wait for that hardware adoption curve. And the other thing, especially on the kids side, is that on the VR side, there's still some studies about safety for kids, and we'll be waiting for hardware that are more safe for kids. So, finally, a couple of videos just to show. This is a product with Weta. So again, we're trying to take AR and integrating it more into play. So it's more of instead of just showing eye candy, it's a critical feature. So one thing here, what we're trying to show is you buy a physical toy, and you can actually upgrade it digitally over time. So just like a video game, I bought a toy, but now I pay, let's say, 99 cents, and now I get a shield generator that physically attaches to the toy. And even more interesting, I think, is like, so here's the full game board. The whole environment comes to life and stuff, but basically the blue player is actually in another room, and now he moves digitally on your board. So imagine using AR to create multiplayer. You know, you can be playing against someone in Japan, but both of you guys are moving physical pieces on a board and seeing each other as a digital opponent. So I think that that critical integration between, again, a physical object and an AR layer on top is what's going to really bring the magic.
That's awesome. Are these prototypes, or are they coming out very soon?
The Lego one will be in store. Mockingjay is live.
Sweet.
Star Wars is live. Yeah, this will come out end of next year, hopefully.
It really brings AR home. Thank you. What I'd like to do next is introduce. We have two Mikes and two Jasons here, so we'll go with Mike 2 now. Mike Ruzicki is a refugee from the New York theater scene who found himself in the ad world. So please give him your condolences, right? A creative technologist by trade and game designer on the side. He is particularly fascinated by the storytelling potential of interactive narratives. As a creator interested in telling stories that profoundly affect people, VR has rapidly become his favorite medium. From an advertising perspective, VR is a rich storytelling platform that affords brands the opportunity to create a truly visceral experience for the audience. Mike is excited to be part of a group of people pushing the boundaries of VR and advertising. So, what does that mean?
The excitement part, that I'm really happy to be up here, mostly. And they gave me a microphone, so I'm going to subject you to my opinions for 5 minutes. I had an experience recently that I found completely fantastic. I got to try out an HTC Vive, the headwear that Valve and HTC have been putting out together with the lighthouse tracking system. That was utterly fantastic. And we were talking about D&D and LARPing earlier, and I'll just raise my freak flag high. I loved that stuff as a kid, still do. But I got to play with what was the equivalent to MS Paint in the Vive. It's called Tilt Brush. And you basically get to paint with light. I totally recommend anybody, if you get the chance to do it, it's fantastic. The hardware itself is completely amazing, but for a second, you paint with light, little light graffiti, dynamic lighting, volumetric, it's beautiful. For a second, I genuinely thought I was a wizard. I drew a little spiral over my head that showered sparks down on me, and for a moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm Gandalf. For a brief moment, my suspension of disbelief was just all in. I was given over to this experience. And that is what I love so much about VR, and that's where a lot of that storytelling potential kind of goes, is interesting to me. I think that our superpower as a species is our ability to suspend our disbelief, is our ability to give over to a story that we're hearing, is our imagination and our willingness to go with it. And we do it easily. Sitting around a kitchen table, talking with your friends with some dice and some miniatures and a big thing of orange soda, all of a sudden you're pretending that you're dwarves and elves. And we believe these stories. We love these stories. If you've never played D&D, you're never too old. Go do it. It's fun. Sort of the problem that I find with suspension of disbelief is the elements that take us out of it. There are a lot of things that can distract us from the given narrative, and VR fixes one of them. So suspension of disbelief is something that we've been struggling with ever since ancient Greek days, that idea of giving over to something, even since you were talking about sitting around campfires, talking about shadows. We understand that the shaman speaking to us is not actually all of the characters that he's representing, but we can still get taken away. As technology gets better, it tricks our brains better and better from a technical aspect. If you ever go see a play and something goes wrong on stage technically, like if a light doesn't fire at the right time or a sound cue goes off at the wrong time, your suspension of disbelief will be broken. Technically speaking, when you have the screen door effect in the DK1, which we've gotten farther and farther away from, it's only gotten more and more visually tricksy, if you will, going back to Lord of the Rings references. That's helped us give ourselves over to the story better from a technical aspect. That said, if you see some really bad acting on TV or in theater, that's also going to take you out of the experience. So again, getting back to what everybody else here has been talking about, story is of paramount importance. It's not just the technical aspects that are so thrilling about VR. You will have a bad experience, gonna have a bad time if you don't have a good story. It's generally what it comes down to. So listen to your directors, listen to your actors, listen to your designers, listen to all these things, because they're here to give you an awesome experience and help you craft that awesome experience. This is not just a technical problem. And that was something that we had to solve in the ad world. And it was really fun to, start figuring it out along with the rest of the industry. That's about it.
Awesome, thank you. And let me just reiterate what you're saying about suspension of disbelief, right? First of all, I admit to being a level 12 cleric. It's my D&D wonk side, but
Good choice.
When I left Amazon and went to work for Google briefly, and on my first day of new hire orientation, they said, under your chair you'll find some Google glasses. Like, we're giving all the new employees this week Google glasses to wear. And I'm already starting to spin these great stories. It's like, wow, I'll be able to play with this prototype device. I reach under my chair, it's a pair of sunglasses that says Google. It's like, come on, are you really so cheap? But they had me for a moment, and that had stuck with me. So last but not least, I'd like to introduce you all to Rick Ray at the end of the table here, who is the CEO of Surreal, a Los Angeles-based entertainment company that creates and distributes immersive video content for VR devices. Rick co-founded Surreal in 2015 with business partner and chief content officer Andy Vick. At Surreal, Ray oversees the company's overall direction, business strategy, and key strategic partnerships. He is committed to bringing exciting new content experiences to mainstream audiences and pushing the entertainment industry towards innovation and non-traditional thinking, which is awesome. As a digital video industry veteran, he's spent the last 10 years leveraging technology to engage audiences and tell visual stories in new ways, and is continuing that pioneering track record with Surreal.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. Thank you for joining this panel. So I'm excited to tell you guys a little bit about Surreal and what we're doing in the VR space. So Surreal is an immersive entertainment company. We develop, produce, and distribute short-form immersive video for various platforms, including, of course, VR. We sort of see two major buckets of immersive video content. There's spherical video. So we spend about 80% of our time creating spherical video, that is content created with 360-degree camera systems. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that, but basically it's a ball of cameras with lenses pointing out in all directions. So we take that output, we sync it, we stitch it, we clean it up, and then we use more traditional post-production tools to edit it. We are really excited about spherical video because compatibility right now is through the roof. You don't need a VR headset to consume that content. You can use mobile phones, you can use tablets, you can use web browsers. There are embeddable players. So, and also major content platforms like YouTube and Facebook are supporting spherical video. So we're big proponents of that, and we're spending a lot of time on it. About 20% of our time is spent creating and experimenting with interactive virtual reality content. So that is content created using 3D game engines like Unity and Unreal. So that requires working with 3D artists and developers and creating assets and bringing those into game engines and rendering that out to VR headsets. Really exciting, amazing experiences. You know, there are some hurdles in creating that type of content. It's more expensive, it's more time consuming. There's a smaller audience base that you can reach right now. So we're big believers in that, and we know that it's gonna be a big part of immersive entertainment down the road. Right now, we see it more as an R&D track. So my background, my co-founder's background is rooted in online video and the MCN space. So I was general manager of entertainment at Maker Studios. Before that, I ran Blip Studios, which was the original content arm of Blip TV. So I think that the way that we're approaching content in the space is a little bit different than some of the other production companies, TV, film, and commercial, that are starting to move into immersive content. That is, you know, we're not developing and creating content in a vacuum. We're partnering with great talent and media companies and brands and helping them take their first steps in the space. We think the biggest problem that we face right now in VR is adoption, and the best way that we can tackle that is by tapping into existing audiences. And there are a lot of viewers out there looking for fresh new experiences, and we think that by working with talent that have those followings, that it can really help expose a lot of new people to this type of content. So we're really excited by that. In terms of our technology and our distribution strategies, we're very agnostic. So, you know, we think it's more important right now to build content expertise. We're working with a lot of different types of capture systems. We're distributing our content on many different platforms, like I said, YouTube and Facebook, of course, but we're also looking at some of the newer platforms that are propping up right now that are really focusing around spherical video. So places like Milk VR, Little Star Video, we're excited by those as well. I can tell you, someone who was creating video content 10 years ago, before YouTube was the dominant player, we released content, you know, probably 15 different sites, and every week it would pop in a different place. So I think we're looking at the space kind of like that. We do see a lot of similarities in the beginnings of online video, and we're really trying to inject the space with real audience strategy and thinking about things like how do we create a content ecosystem that makes sense for creators? How can we bring monetization into the conversation and really help people turn this into a sustainable thing? So if you're curious about what we're doing or want to see examples, please check out surreal.tv. We have a couple of new experiences launching in the next couple of weeks. We did a beautiful short film with iJustine, a very introspective piece. She's really excited about it. That's going to premiere on her YouTube channel. We did a great horror short in partnership with Tony Valenzuela of Black Box TV. He's a prolific horror director on YouTube. Again, that's premiering on his YouTube channel.
Cool, thanks. So, I'm just going to tell you all, I feel very glad to be on a panel with people who can actually explain to me now some questions I've got about VR and AR. So I'm going to ask a couple questions. I'm going to take some questions from you all, and we'll flip back and forth just to spice things up. So my first question was going to be, why is virtual reality so good at sucking us in? But now I'm wondering, is that true? Or does maybe virtual reality just plain suck?
Distinct possibility.
So I'd like to kind of get each of your take on that. Mark, we'll start with you.
I think virtual reality has the ability to take us places that we've never seen before. And once we get beyond those technical issues that I think they're happening very quickly, that we're going to get there. But I think it is an amazing medium to me, it's an incredibly immersive experience that is like none other. You can't have that kind of sensory perception without something like that. And so I think it has the ability to really be a game changer as it relates to gaming and entertainment. The question's going to be, are we going to be all living in a world like Ready Player One with headsets strapped to our head?
I think on the virtual reality side, that I was reading this thing about hello? Yeah. I was reading this thing about the first nuclear reactor in Chicago was used to power a light bulb, and then by the end of the year, it could power like the whole city. So if you look at virtual reality now, like this is the baseline. This is as bad as it will ever get, and it's still pretty awesome. So I feel like it's just exponentially going to get better.
I agree. There's certainly challenges right now. I mean, most recently, you look at the CNN Democratic debate that was live broadcasted, and that received some troublesome reviews. But if you look at why that was the case, I mean, it was only 180 degrees. The camera placement decisions were poor. So there's some things we need to work out on that end. But I think there's some tremendous benefits and real value, and we see that in the documentary space and some of the documentary films that have been filmed around some of the world's most pressing issues fundamentally change the way we see ourselves as humans and our place in the world and how we understand a problem. And so that to me is just phenomenal.
I apparently already launched my salvo on this issue earlier. But I think one of the interesting things about why it's so good at sucking us in, if anybody here has experienced a horror experience in VR, it's particularly effective at scaring the pants off of us. And it's because I think if you look at a horror movie, you are looking at it in a frame, in a little proscenium frame of the TV, a movie, whatever. You're sitting there with your friend. You can see things outside that anchor you outside that given narrative. It stops you from giving yourself over to it because of the total sensory override that we get from a VR headset, and I look forward to much less cumbersome methods of getting that same effect. It more easily sucks us in. It's because it's blocking out more of the world. That's why you put headphones on. That's why you sit in the chair and people don't mess with you, ideally, unless you have really annoying coworkers. So yeah, I think it's good at that because it's keeping you in that world all the better.
Yeah, I mean, I think by definition it sucks you in, right? Like it fills your field of view. I think maybe a different way to think about that question is, why do we feel a need to experience something beyond just what we can see in a frame, a rectangular frame? And I think that viewers, society, everybody in this room, we're looking for something that's different. We're looking for something fresh. We're looking for a different way to consume entertainment. So I think, to me, VR, AR, immersive entertainment represents the next phase of experiences. And I think that, in time, the physical will be less important. And it doesn't mean that it will, or I should say, it will take up less of our day-to-day lives. And it will open up a whole new world of experiences. And I think that's the promise of VR, and that's why everyone's really excited about it right now.
If I could just add one thing, dovetailing on that horror side of thing, and going back to your story about, or the movie where the train is coming at people, and my initial reaction as I recall that story is you would think that when people get up out of their chairs, they realize that the train track is still not coming in. But if this is on your head, and there's no way for your brain to escape that train coming at you, it becomes a different story, and so it really becomes amazingly immersive.
I don't know if any of you guys are fans of haunted houses, but speaking on the horror theme, I am, and Kansas City has a sort of a yearly thing around Halloween every year. It's like the American mecca for haunted houses. And you can go there and have the crap scared out of you. Will that ever happen with VR? Like, can it really touch all of our senses in a way that real actors and the smell of sweat? I mean, is it just a matter of fooling the brain ultimately with enough sensory input?
Sorry.
So we just produced a horror short, and I can tell you, for the first time as a creator, I'm starting to feel some responsibility about the type of content that we're making. Because you do a jump scare at the right moment with the right sound cue, like you can really scare somebody. So you have to kind of be careful with it. And I think, I'm a big proponent of haptic technology and looking at ways to integrate other senses into these experiences. And I think absolutely yes, within the next few years, you will get the exact same haunted house experience from your home.
Nice. I'm going to pause and take a question from the audience. I've got lots more, but... Yep, please.
I just was in a panel, and I'm still trying to, I realize that we're all creating a vernacular as we go along almost. It's almost like one of the better quotes I've heard at the panels was, think of the way CGI VFX was in '94, that's where we are with VR now. So AR, VR, mixed reality. The latest definition I heard from mixed reality that's kind of got elements of both VR, meaning a headset, but also augmented reality, and then you have real world overlay. Opinions, agree, disagree?
So the question for the audience is, what is the definition of mixed reality?
Fair enough.
Cool. Mark, you want to start?
And I agree that this is something that we have to settle on sooner rather than later, because I think if we don't, as a collective, get this figured out, it's already difficult enough to explain to the public that if we can't agree on what the terms are, it continues to get very messy. I think mixed reality becomes a blurred line that everything can get lumped into, and I don't think that's what should happen. Augmenting is overlaying what you can see, in my mind, and virtual is creating that alternate experience. And I think in the mixed sense, there are opportunities to go back or forth, but I don't, in my humble opinion, I don't think that, I think the two should be delineated.
I think, well,
Yep.
On the mixed reality side, I think the funny thing for the younger generation is it's just reality, like digital is everywhere on all the time. And I think that distinction of certain things being VR, AR, mixed or whatever is just gonna go away. It's just part of just media,
Any other strong feelings or opinions on it? Nope. So, one more question for the audience. We'll move on. Yep.
This question is for Rick. As it happened with visual effects, with the race to the bottom and the tax incentives, kind of like the film more specifically going out of LA and all that, I feel like now it's like a pivotal point with VR to maybe, do you think, I guess the question is, our clients are going to pay what VR or AR, or if anyone else wants to answer, our clients are actually gonna pay for VR, or are we gonna see, again, another race to the bottom of now companies like, taking jobs for free and just taking a hit just to get it and, and they're beating each other?
Or, in a more terminal sense, are we going to see 6 billion VR cat videos on the future YouTube?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I hope so.
So I'll tell you what I've seen in the marketplace. A year ago, I think that brands, clients were paying a lot more than they're paying today for these types of experiences, and I do think that price will continue to drop, and that's just a function of these content creation tools being democratized. So as it's easier for people to use them and make content, then it becomes less about the technical side and more about the creative and execution side. So, I think that there's tremendous value in this type of content, and it takes a hell of a lot longer to make it and to make it good. But at the same time, we really want a lot of people to be experimenting with it and using it. So part of what we're doing is figuring out how can we make these tools easier to use, how can we empower and enable many creators to be making this type of content. And to us, that is more important. It's more important that we get to the point where there is a lot of consistency in VR content experiences so that audiences will invest in the hardware and come back week after week or every day and build it into their routines. And I think when we have that scaled audience, then we'll be able to monetize in many more ways beyond just the physical production side.
And just to add to that, I think this is what Google is doing really well on YouTube. They're trying to democratize the production and consumption of virtual realities. And they already, turned on their 360 player. They're producing their new camera rig that they want to push out to select content creators. So we're kind of seeing that happen. I too am really excited about once that gets out there, more formal language will develop, more consistency will develop, and we'll also see those market prices, I think, start to solidify.
Okay, cool. But let me ask you, is it really a problem for there to be a race to the bottom from a consumer perspective? What's right for the consumer? Do consumers want better video, higher quality experiences, or more experiences?
So, as somebody who comes from online video, I think the way that we think about quality, it's a very subjective thing. You look at YouTube stars that have millions and millions of followers that have greater viewership than many cable TV networks. And you look at their content and you think, well, this is garbage. This is not high quality. And honestly, I beg to differ. That's just, that's my belief that what's important is engaging with the viewer and connecting with them in a way that they can't get through every other form of media. So I think it depends on sort of what your definition is of quality.
I think viewers, much in the same way that you're seeing the move away from cable and whatnot to on-demand and streaming services, audiences don't necessarily care about what the content is as long as it is the right content for them, which I think is the YouTube argument, is that you've got thousands and millions of teens that are tuning into things that mean nothing to you or I necessarily, but it speaks directly to them because it is the content that is right for them at the right time while they're screwing around on the internet going, oh, look, this video's over here, this video's over here. Again, YouTube is doing a great job at proper discovery methods. It's going to be the same thing for 360, I would think, of showing you the right experience when you're looking for it.
And I think we're still at the beginning phase of figuring out what type of creative formats work in VR and 360. And just like you have TV show formats that are tried and tested and have been on television for 20 years, and you have the vlog, which is sort of like the prototypical YouTube format. I think we're going to see something fresh and new pop up around VR, and we just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to my next question. I think I agree with you. We want that fresh and new for VR, and we want that fresh and new for AR as well, right? Like, basically, I would love to be able to look at the room here and see a label above each of your heads in a way, and to be able to say, well, there's an engineer I can go hire, or there's a VC I can talk to raise my next 10 million. You know, what's the killer app going to be for AR? You know, because I don't know that we found it yet. We're getting there, but I'm kind of curious if you've got an opinion on it.
Yep. So for me, I think the killer app for AR is overlaying that digital layer on top of a physical object, and having that actually loop, closing the loop between the physical object and the digital layer as well. So, for instance, something that we're doing in the toy space. We're used to seeing AR as just cool graphics on top of something physical, but we built a control mechanism for a tank. But the neat thing is, like, you can look at this vehicle, you can, it's almost like StarCraft. You can see all the places it can go on the map. You can click where you want it to go, and then the physical vehicle moves based off of that decision and interacts with the digital world that's on the table as well. So I've seen some stuff from MIT that's similar, where you can look at the light bulb, and when you look at it, all the color controls appear. You can interact with the color controls in AR, and the physical light changes color. So I think that loop, when the physical world starts changing to match the digital world, and both affect each other, I think that's the killer app.
But if I had to pin you down, would it be a toy experience or a home automation experience, if you had to guess?
For me, it'd be a toy experience.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I'll start with that last point first. And I'm not trying to be biased here, but gaming is typically what has driven things in the past, or entertainment. What's interesting is that with AR, the commercial side of things right now is with industrial, and there's incredible things that are being done. You can look at a blueprint and you'll see the building. And but I do think that pivot point, obviously the hardware has to be price competitive, but I think people are, as you said, wanting to have smart information or smart things rendered. So I think in the case of gaming, when people are going to able to interact with elements that are part of storylines and part of narratives that are there, that you're able to understand and engage with, I think that is going to create a truly innovative experience. And I will tell you that at Augmented World Expo, met with the Google folks, and it's such a Google thing to do, to solve a problem and not care about what they did with that solution. They created driverless cars so they could go get more map data, or Ingress, which is an AR, so they could get geolocation data. And then not turn it into a gaming studio. Well, same thing here. They created a technology to develop, with depth sensing cameras, mesh technology, so that as it looks out, it can mesh the room. And they did it for their Project Tango phone. They don't really care about it. But what's amazing about that is that, think about putting on those glasses, and now as you're looking out, we're in a cave, right? Or you click a button and that changes into the holodeck, and it knows, based on the planes and where you're at, what that should actually be. And I don't think we're that far away from that. And I think that is going to be a pretty mind-blowing experience. And so I think when you start having that overlay of that ability to engage and alter your reality, I think that could be the killer app.
And I think I like what you're saying, but I'm also worried culturally, right? All of us in this room care about virtual reality, augmented reality, but is it the right thing? We speak of mediation sometimes. Media, especially the sort that we're building now, gets between us and reality. And there have been studies that show that when you expose a lot of kids to that, it alters their reality and it influences the trajectory of their lives. So I guess my question is, what might be the primary risks or problems of the VR and AR tech that we're building? And are we thinking about ways of alleviating those risks?
So I'll hop in. I have two kids, 9-year-old and 11-year-old, and I mean, to be honest, I'm worried that that's something that could be very addictive. And can begin to cut somebody off, because how much is enough? You know, I grew up with my mom saying, you know, don't sit so close to the TV, you're going to go blind. Well, okay, right, we all heard that. Now we're putting a TV 2 inches away from their face. And so I'm intrigued by how that happened in just a generation, that's okay to sit that close to a TV. But I think I think that there is that concern, but I'm also a believer that done in moderation. I think what's interesting that you are seeing this, I'll call it the rise of the freaks and geeks, with cosplay, with LARPing, with D&D. I think the more digital we get, the more people seek the opposite outlet. And we haven't become dystopian like it's continually predicted. We embrace it, we find out what's good, but I think it also, there's a counterbalance to those, and we begin to engage each other in a different way that isn't technology driven. And I think in some ways people have become, you know, I now keep in touch with people from high school because of Facebook who I'd never seen before. And again, it's because of technology. I think that this gives us an opportunity to go places where we wouldn't have, just so long as we don't stay there.
I mean, yeah, we hear the horror stories of, you know, someone died playing StarCraft in a, you know, internet cafe, or, you know, and we all think of that archetypical World of Warcraft shut-in, and yeah, I played a lot of EverQuest back in the day, but but I still found time to like go out and hang out with my friends. And the friends that you make on the internet, yeah, they're not the, you know, flesh and blood friends that you're gonna have here, but I talk to anybody under the age of 18 these days, and those friendships count. Those friendships are, yeah, you might not see them on a day-to-day basis, but human interaction is still human interaction. I think that, you know, killer app for VR at least is when I can genuinely feel the presence of people that I love and connect with near me. You know, with AR, obviously, you would have to be there with them. But if I could sit around and watch Netflix in the same room as my dad, or like watch the hockey game with my dad. Like my dad lives in Richmond, Virginia. I very rarely get to see each other because of the transcontinental distance. But when Portal 2 came out, because we're both huge Valve nerds, he and I got to solve puzzles together. And that was a genuinely magical experience for the two of us, for what was normally like a great single-player experience. That's what I think people are going to end up seeking out. That, yeah, when movies and television came out, there were naysayers saying, oh, this is going to be the death of human interaction and kindness and manners. Society still functions, just differently.
So you're saying trust technology?
Yes, it'll never take you astray.
Never.
Ever.
I want one question for the audience. I want someone to raise their hand really high if you've got a controversial, tough question. This will be the last session for the day. Come on, I know someone's got something. Yeah.
I don't know if it's that controversial, but one of the things that takes us into the next level is when you get the technology promised by Magic Leap. If you're familiar with that, the idea that this is moving from you seeing an image 2 inches in front of your eye to seeing an image that's in your eye, in your head, being projected onto your retina. At that point, it is physically impossible for you to distinguish between the dragon that is sitting in the chair next to you and the fact that there is no dragon sitting in the chair next to you. And if you talk about the impact on children and the impact on an altered sense of reality, I remember back to the stage when we used to wonder if pictures were doctored or not. We didn't know if a photograph was real. Well, now who in the heck knows if a photograph is real? Well, now you face that coming to the next level of, is my life real? Do I have a sense of reality about what is actually in my life and what isn't?
All right, so quick round for the panelists then. We're going to try to sum up ontological discussions that have been happening for the last couple centuries right now in like a 30-second sound bit. No, all seriousness, seriously, this is a beautiful world that we're entering now, a brave new world. I want to thank everyone here on the panel and the audience for joining in. Thank you all.